study on one of my favorite studies of late, which is abiogenesis, and we conducted a forensic audit. We want to look into the information theory and the system theory and how it applies to abiogenesis and how it applies to biological evolution. So here we go. All right, I'm gonna do this real quick. And there's so many cameras here. There we go. I might have to move this one. I'm trying to get it set up. So if you would bear with me, put this one over here. Whoa, there we go. Down we go, Rumble. We're back up. Took a tumble. All right. Now I can see the slides better. All right. So what exactly are we doing? We're going to take science to go after a myth. If you listen to the ones that support abiogenesis, they think it's necessary. Of course, the humanists, the atheists, the secularists, materialists. Nothing comes out of anything else but nature. Nature explains everything. But when you put your mind to it, the absurdity of life coming from non life, then mutating from one cell creature without leaving a trace between the cell number two all the way up to the multiple cells, you see the problem with the theory. And so, as we're going to do a forensic audit, you're going to see what fingerprint, what footprint, what identity has been left, so that we can go over it, so we can find out what is going on really. So we're going to talk about system failure analysis. Key aspects of system failure analysis is the objective to understand the failure mode, mechanism, and locations to prevent future incident. So it's not, but it has been done from those who want to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, you're not a biologist. No, I'm looking at the system of how it would operate, because once you understand one cell by itself does nothing for your theory on evolution or abiogenesis. They have to build a system in place to operate at this level of a human, animal, even a virus. All that is impossible in and of itself. The design mechanisms that are in place are unrefutable unless you have a myth or a belief system that overrides your common sense. You're looking for something, you're looking for someone, or the absurdity of a mindless process replicating over and over again until you get this monumental being called mankind. My objective, like I said, process. It is a systematic investigation using various techniques, physical, chemical, simulation, to pinpoint the true root cause, not just the obvious one. We want to run this thing down, and it's just a preliminary one right now, but we're getting into it more and more. Scope. The system failure analysis can analyze failures in complex systems such as electronics, manufacturing, software at different levels, from components to entire processes. Now, I'm giving you the scope in that terms. We're going to get further how it can be used in abiogenesis, so don't get ahead of me. Methodologies often uses established methods like failure mode and effective analysis, or failure mode effects and critical analysis to proactively identify potential failures. Outcomes leads to design improvement, better maintenance, enhanced safety protocols, and increase overall system robustness and reliability. So that's generally what they use it for. But we don't turn this around. We don't turn it for our use. In looking at the, getting kind of warm now, looking at the structures that are readily available in the human body, in animals, in life itself. And it amazes me when you talk to those that rely upon the abiogenesis and evolution theory, that you would take something so complex and that you would think like magic that time would help you out. We're going to get into a little bit of the math. The math destroys your theory. Might get in it today, we might get in it tomorrow, but yes, we will get into the math. All right. System failure analysis is a systematic process to identify the root causes of the system failure using these tools, like the root cause analysis, RCA, and failure modes, and effective analysis, FMEA, to understand how, where, and why a system failed or could fail to prevent recurrence, involving data collection, which is in the human body, physical chemical analysis, and local tools like a fault tree to improve reliability, prevent costly downtime, focus on design process or component issues. So that's how I use in engineering and different things. But how can we now take this method and turn it on abiogenesis and evolution? Well, the question is system failure helpful to analyze and test abiogenesis and evolution? And I say yes, and this is why. Application to abiogenesis, origin of life. And I'm going to be showing some videos. Some of you won't be able to see it. I will load it up to Rumble later, and I'll load it up to Substack later. But we're going to go over it. Yes, system failure analysis, SFA, offers valuable frameworks like fault tree analysis, FMEA, which we talked about earlier, can be adapted to understand failures in evolved biological system, disease, aging, and that sort of thing. We're going to go to the core, but we'll get to that. And guide abiogenesis research, not by testing if evolution happened, but by revealing fundamental principles of complexity, robustness, and self-organization in systems that fail, providing insights into how simple non-living components could form functional. Now, see that I took this from a website, and they are, and this is what the beautiful part about it. Once you get into looking at it, assumption, assumption, assumption. They assume that abiogenesis could happen. They're not testing it, but we're gonna test. We're gonna go through the line. How non-living components could form complex life. Origin of life research. It helps move abiogenesis from essence to chemical mechanics by showing how complexity arises from basic rules, contrasting engineered systems with evolved ones, assume evolved ones. Contrasting to highlight unique biological principles. The beauty of this is when you take a hold of it and you see assumption upon speculative narrative. We don't know, but we think this must how it happened. One scientist has been said more than once. We know it happened because we are here. That's magic. That's taking your assumption to the nth degree. No, there is alternatives while we're here. But because of their religion of humanism and their religion of atheism, their belief that there is no God without proof, they are grasping at straws. Now, they say, well, we don't make a true statement, so you have to prove that God here. No, that's immaterial and material. God is beyond the material world. He makes himself known. Well, we're not going to get into that today, but we're just going to bring this down to you. When someone, an atheist, is getting off the subject, they're trying to kick the can down the road. They say, it takes billions of years. We was, 4 billion years, 100,000 years for man to evolve. They are guessing, they are perpetuating their myth. That is all they're doing. All right. Key differences: design versus evolved system, of course. So we'll turn this system that generally has been used to evaluate and test design systems versus so-called evolved systems. I say both systems are designed, but they can't swallow that yet. Their beliefs, they choke on their beliefs. But all right, revealing principles, as we talked about before, focuses on understanding principles, self-organization, that govern complex systems, helping researchers understand how they believe, simple molecules could assemble into life precursors, RNA, proto metabolicism. They got these theories how it could. Never ever have they proved it. Urey, Miller, and all that, bunch of lies. But you got people on the internet that are they rabid atheists. And well, I was a religious person. I was this, and I sought God for 2 years. That's your personal life. I don't know what you and God did or what you wanted from God. However, what we're looking at, we're going at it the scientific way. We're going at it the neutral, straight facts. And this is just one in a number of hopefully live streams and also videos on the application of science on abiogenesis. They won't tell you in your science class in school because it would bring too much doubt. It will break the mold of the hold they have on the funding, the credentialing, the state power, the academic prestige, on and on and on. Guiding experiments by analyzing what fails, in lab settings, why specific molecules don't self-assemble. That's their theory. They're still at a loss. They haven't found it yet. They have tried everything. And they are getting the millions and the billions of dollars, but they can't figure it out. Researchers refine experimental designs like Miller Urey variations to identify the most promising pathways from what to how. Instead of seeking a single historical event, the system analysis helps focus on general chemical principles that make life emergence, they say, possible. transforming the mystery into solvable chemicals question. That's what they believe. Chemistry, biology, it's the same. However, it is not. Now, target machine. All right. First living cell capable of reproduction, regulation, repair, and persistence. How many billions of years before we got the first, reptile, fish, all sprung from this living cell? The first grass, the first tree. You got to understand, grass and trees and such come from a seed. The seed was first planted, the seed, let it grow, multiply. Um, the chicken, this is other research we can do, hopefully. The chicken had to come first because of a certain protein found in the egg. They'll say, well, the animal before the chicken was it. Well, the chicken was a dinosaur, it was a big dinosaur. Now, they don't understand the stacking of the designer. And they say, well, this shows that this goes into this, it's a stack. It's a design, not a evolved mysteriously, in a mystery way, in a magical setting. All right, let us proceed. All right, target again, machine. So we got subsystems. I'm gonna go over the subsystems that we run the test on, and then I require the output and then a model performance as we ran our test, and then we'll tell you to pass or fail. Okay. All right. So subsystem, raw material accumulation. So in the and it's they don't know for sure. Of course they don't, because it is historical. Let me put this down for you. Hard science, rocket science, going to the moon. Soft science, assumptions, speculation. Abiogenesis, evolution. Now in biology, you can break it down, and they got soft science. And also, throw this out. When you're doing the math, watch how they change from quantitative, which hurts them, to qualitative, where they can talk about and speculate. The hard science using the math kills abiogenesis and evolution. The soft science, because you can speculate, you can ad lib, perpetuates the myth. All right, again. So raw material accumulation, required output. The first thing to get there is it has to be stable, concentrated, prebiotic feedstock. That's what we need. Have we found it in nature? Have we, because again, the scientific model, you got to get a hypothesis, you got to test it, you got to be repeatable, and it's like five other things. It's total about five. All right. So test it. Guess what is going to happen? I mean, hypothesis. Then you're going to test it. See that what you're thinking, then they got to be repeated. Somebody else, some across in New Zealand or somewhere, on take your process and say, "Woola, it works," or "That dude crazy." And it's going to be, that's your peer review process going on at all the time. You got to publish it first. You got to get through the huddle. Once you did your research, you got to get to the huddle of the peer review process of a journal. Get it out there to your other fellow scientists so they can look at it and say, hey, it's viable. Yeah, it follows the guidelines of the journal. They are the gatekeepers. A lot of times it's atheists with tongue in cheek will say, well, why don't you publish something in a peer reviewed journal? because the gatekeepers won't allow you to publish anything that will first attack their feastum, their foundation, and also is money, 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 funding, and also advertising. Right? You got to keep the advertisers happy. It's all about money. All right. Next, polymer formation. So you got the long, well, let's go back. Raw material, stable, concentrated. What happens with the first problem, subsystem of the system? Dilution, hydroanalysis, UV, destruction, dominant realistic environment. So just with the first step in the process of the subsystems of the system. All right. So you got in system analysis, you got drivers and you got drivers that drive the drivers. Okay. There's feedback loops, positive and negative. So you got to you got to turn on reaction, whatever that means. I don't know how to do that. Leave me alone. Um, so some about turn on the this is Rumble. Turn on the reaction. I don't know how to turn that on. First time doing my Rumble. There. But as I was saying, so with the first subsystem, you got a failure already. And this is something to look at. And we're gonna hopefully next few minutes getting to um, some videos, and you can hear on Substack, but I'll upload them later, and you can see them on Rumble later. But all right, so then you got the polymer formation. That's the subsystem that needs to be operational to get this going. However, and the required output, long functional polymers. That's what we need. However, what you get in nature, short random chains dominate long chains unstable. Failure, another failure. All right, so we coming at the block, and we always on these systems to target this machine, this human body, of building it from scratch. And you take the systematic information analysis and you apply it to this abiogenesis. Could we get it off the ground? And it's failure and failure. All right, next, functional information, meaningful sequences, function mapping. Now, I am to believe that we started off with nothing, the Big Bang. It settled, it cooled for billions of years. Then the inorganic pool and and what I keep has to bring, and it's been said before, so it don't have to be said again. The primordial soup cannot be generated by a lightning strike. That is the miracle moment. Scientists don't even believe that, but you still see it in videos, in movies. It's not being contradicted enough. A lightning strike is not gonna. This is not Frankenstein. You don't have the parts together yet either, so it's not going to work. You need a continuous life source of energy to keep the chain. It's like cooking. You keep the chain reaction going. If not, you'll get a puddle of goo. All right. Functional information, what you get is functional sequence, astronomically rare. All right. The number is so low, it's negligible. You don't even try it. Self-replicating. Error, what we require is error stable replication. This soup have to replicate itself over and over. It has to clean out the errors. What came first, the replicator or error correction? And how could they both miraculously appear on the scene at the same time? Because you have failure, 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 and all the raw material is now being polluted. It's being discarded. It cannot work and create in that system. All right. Error stable replication, but the error problem unresolved is a failure, catastrophic. You can't get past this. You are using your imagination to believe a system that is beyond imaginable. But they have told you a story, a lie. They would say the next 10 to 20 years or 100 years, we're going to look back about this God thing and we're going to say this is compared, Jesus Christ compared to Zeus. No, because we already comparing this. I like Star Wars to the point where they got the Force. The Force is in everything, but it does certain things that make sense in certain ways. That, I believe, is what they want to say about nature. They got Mother Nature as being their guide because they have to tell you that is unthinking process that grew hairs in your nose because nature needed it. But an unthinking thinking thing can't think why it needs hairs in your nose, why eyes in your head, why they need to be so far apart over and over again. And there are errors, but in children in life, but you got perfection all along to get to this point that started off better than we are now. They want to tell you that we are growing to a greater creature. We're actually devolving in many ways. We'll get to that some other time. All right. Compartmentalization, stable dividing membranes. All right. Primitive vessels, unstable and non-coordinated. It's a failure. So they're not telling you that for that first theme cell to start doing anything, it needed a membrane. They're not telling you that that membrane is so important because you got to isolate. This is not a bunch of DNA floating around, RNA, pre-RNA, pre-DNA, and just communicating and jumbling together. No, it needed a membrane to isolate it so that it can conduct the chemistry that it needed to do. That's not happening. We're failing at every stop. All right, closed metabolism, self-sustaining chemical cycles, no demonstrated autonomous metabolic loop. So it's a failure. So again, my mind was on the right thing. I skipped ahead. You got to have a closed system, not an open system. Open system is not going to develop. It's too many. You got to have the precursors there, then they got to come together, get a membrane somehow. This thing is not thinking. It's not like, oh my goodness, I got to survive, evolve. I got to. No, it has no stages where it communicates with anything. Communication is key in everything. All right. Repair and control. That required output is damage, detection, and correction. Again, in life, the cells will be damaged by nature or by the chemical process or mutations. You got to go in there. It's the farther you look into science, you see machines, gears, mechanics. operating perfectly without you even being aware of it, removing and bringing in nutrients and sugars and proteins. All right. No prebiotic control system. So again, all of this fails. Hope that made some kind of sense. All right. Machines are built to be an ideal species, evolve through trade-off. They believe, they cannot prove. Fitness versus health. They say, they cannot prove. FFS, system failure analysis, helps bridge these, showing how evolved system they believe. They want to say, excuse me, achieve complexity and function through processes like order through fluctuations, which applies to both a machine's temporary glitch versus a cell metabolic fluctuation. That is what they believe. That is what they're holding their hopes on. They are atheists. They're anti-God. And this blinds them to what is actually going on. Newton, which is said to have had one of the highest recorded IQs, 190, was a Christian. You said, well, we'll come a long way from Newton. Yes, but you'll come a long way in devolving also from common sense to relying on those in the high priest of science that, some of them don't know when to wipe their nose. Don't believe me? Go see it. I've been in a couple offices that it's like children was living there. They spill a cup of coffee, it stays there for months. It's like, okay, do you know how to wipe your nose or other places? I mean, they just don't have a need. All right. Abiogenesis verdict. Machines never reaches operational state. In abiogenesis, as you do a stress test, really do a stress test, you'll see it never reaches operational state or status. It fails. The subsystems can't assemble it. They say, well, give us time. That's not science. You have a theory that we're operating on, which is the fundamental theory of humanist atheists, and it's not operating. You don't. We're not saying go believe in the spaghetti monster. No, we're saying take a look at it. Look at it what it is, and tell the people right. But they know nature hoards a vacuum, so something is going to rush in. Ask the British when they became so secular, Europe so secular. What is rushing in? Another religion on top of their atheist beliefs. But I want to keep going on. All right. Systems do not achieve even the minimal functional viability. The model fails every subsystem simultaneously. You got to have these things in place. You got to have a membrane so the chemical process can function. They don't have this, and it's on and on and on. But it must have happened because they believe it happened, and they are the experts. All right. Macroevolution body, plan assembly, forensic audit, target machine, a viable multicellular animal body plan. That is another key failure of the stress test, and we're going to go over it. All right, so we'll just jump on it. All right, subsystem, genetic control networks, required output, time, developmental regulations. So you got to have the written blueprint in place to know where to go, where it's going to fit. A mindless, unthinking process created this. That's what they want you to believe. All right. Model performance requires fully formed regulatory architecture. The structure got to be there. You have to put something in the cup. You got to have the cup there first before you can put something in it. Then another mechanism. I want to drink from the straw. I need the straw. The body parts are not there. Structural frameworks, skeletal, cells, excuse me, shells, tissues require coordinated multi-gene systems. They will say it in your face. A gene, a DNA, is like 8 feet long, and you can go to the sun 100 times when you stretch out all the genes in your body. That came from nothing. That came from nowhere. It came from a mindless process. All right. Sensory systems. Why does shrimp and different bugs have these antennae? Better than the eyes. You can take off the antennae and still leave them in the eyes and they'll run into stuff. But you can cover the eyes and the antenna whiskers will alert them where they're going. Sensory systems. Why? Environmental detection. Partial systems, non-viable. You got to have the whole thing. You got to have the antenna that hits the monitor before I phase plan into it with the nerve system connected to the brain, connected to the muscles. You can't just have the antenna without the nervous system, without the brain. Simple, nature could not have, Mother Nature, Gaia, could not have created the common cockroach, let alone the human body. Now, nervous system, that's the subsystem. Required output will be coordinated movement. It still amazes me. Without even, much effort, wiggle my fingers, wiggle my toes. It's amazing. Where it all connected, don't know. That's a mystery in itself. The mind is also, they won't say it's chemical processes, because they got to make it all natural. But no, it goes beyond that. What is love? What is hate? What is jealousy? Where does it come from? We'll get into that too later, hopefully. Again, subsystem nervous control, required output, coordinated movement, model performance, requires simultaneous integration. You need all the systems in place. All right. You need the body plan. You got to have the body to put the brain in, to put the nervous system, limbic system, sensory systems all into play. It's failed. All right. So did it come out with one side working? What about predators and prey? So while this one is developing, what is this one eating? Well, it's eat up the first prototype, that sort of thing. All right. Digestion, metabolism, energy extraction. So that's the subsystem is digestion, metabolism, required output, energy extraction, model performance, multiple enzyme coordinated networks required. In your gut, this mindless process said, I need acid. Before I get the acid, I got to have a lining in it that can resist the acid and not melt the innards of your guts. Then I need this biosphere in the gut to break down the foods so that the body can live. Mindless process. We happen just to need all this elements in our gut with a mindless process forged ahead through the murkiness of the vents down below because they were next to the hot vents. But if you go up top with the other stuff needed, the stuff that grew by the vents will be destroyed by the UVA. The stuff that grew on top that go by the vents that they needed, the process will die because of the heat. But you call me crazy. All right. Okay, macroevolution verdict. No stepwise pathway has been demonstrated where partial versions survive and improve. All body plans require simultaneous integrated systems availability. They say, well, they mutated into the next level. So you have something with low level had looked like it has no eyes. All right. So the next thing above it has eyes that this has the same body plan. We have, I think it's 75% um, of DNA that a banana has. They say, well, see, we evolved with the banana. So flesh eats banana. What it actually shows that we came from the same dirt, the same earth, the same compound. A designer stacking on creation, branching off. But they want you to believe that everything mutated, including the banana. I've heard so-called science talking heads say, you know, say the Venus flytrap. It evolved over time that you had to have the Venus flytrap sends out a scent like sweet nectar. The fly, whatever comes, smells it, approaches, it has to hit two hairs and it triggers. Why two hairs? It's mindless process, thought. I'm gonna need it to hit two because I know it's deeper in here. You know, any two, it got like four hairs on each side, and then it grew miraculously these what do you call like finger like things that intertwine and lock them in. Amazing what a non-thinking process could do and has done. Amazing. All right. So we got reproduction, we got repair, faithful, what? Yeah, faithful replication. Yeah. Requires control, germline control. All right. So you got reproduction and repair, immunity, faithful replication, damage response. So you got these processes got to go in. All right, requires complete germline control, multi-layer information systems required. All right, so I got lost on that for a second. So what that's saying is you got reproduction, something gets damaged, the immunity system reacts or needs to repair. You got to replicate it, but you got to respond to the damage, and then the requirement is to have a multi-layered information system. All the systems got to be talking, but it was billions of years. That's our genie. It was billions of years. The system fails because, as we look at it through the lens of science, we see and engineering that you need all these processes there in place. There's no other way. They can explain it away because they have the imagination, but they don't have the evidence. All right. Information source test. Information origin remains unaccounted for. So when you're dealing with um, abiogenesis and evolution, we still got to get to the point. I don't care if you take another 500 years, you're not going to get there. Time is not your problem. The more science increases, the more demanding the original process had to be. Unraveling the cell is, they thought it was a simple process that you look down, you find this, and back in the day, it was spontaneous. A fly, not knowing the process, spontaneously um, cropped up on some rotten meat and that sort of thing. But they learned, it's not like that. But they still, abiogenesis took its place, and this abiogenesis is still a failure. And that supplants the atheist concept. They will say, well, even without a God, we still won't believe. That's your personal thing. I'm looking for the footprint. I'm looking for the hand that moves. I'm looking for the first mover. I'm looking for the first principle. All right. So test: random mutation, selection, chemical necessity, multiverse chance. All right. So let's go over some of this. Information origin remains unaccounted for. So when you put them in a corner, they got to squirm, and they try to squirm out of it. All right. So random mutation. Random mutation, science says, degrades information. So it's a failure. That won't help out abiogenesis. And you cannot fail your way up the ladder in evolution. They want to fail their way all the way up to mankind. From molecule to man, they fail their way up. Selection filters existing function, does not generate new systems. You do not go from a body plan of amoeba to the body plan of a tadpole or a lizard, our cousin. You cannot fail your way up. Again, chemical necessity, natural models, produces chemistry, not arithmetic instruction, algorithmic instruction. It doesn't produce data. It doesn't produce the mathematical formations that needed to get you from here to there. Something with a brain is behind this. All right. Multiverse chance. Admits improbability rather than solving it. It's a failed system. Again, we're not getting anywhere with this. All right. Now, to make the atheist even more matter, we're going to drop on into intelligent design audit. You can run these yourself. Do an information and a system test on abiogenesis versus intelligent design. Write out the criteria, what you want, and you don't have to be a scientist. You can ask different chat bots to do it. You can talk to your local science teacher. Most of them are going to be, they sold into it. The lower on the rung of life, the more into the system without the knowledge. They don't have the knowledge of what's wrong. So yeah. Well, evolution, yeah. So, but to get the raw data to run the test is not that hard. All right, intelligent design audit requirement introduces code information. So, somewhere out there is this intelligent being that is intelligent. He hasn't told us where he comes from. He said he has always been, and there's no other like him, there's no one beside him. That's why I don't believe in the Trinity. So, he, and it's a he, introduces coded information, meets system requirements. Someone designed this cup. Design this cup. Someone chose the color and the symbols. Someone chose where to insert the straw. This is mindful. This is not mindless. They want you to believe in mindlessness is superior than mindfulness. All right, so produces integrated systems, pass. Explains coordination, is passes. Explains rapid appearance, the Cambrian. You got body parts of so-called um, species that should have came before and after in the same fossil fields. Also, the mystery is, oh, you need millions of years to fossilize something. You do not. Mount St. Helens proved that. 10 years they had fossilized trees, fossilized rock, and different things. So no, the Earth looks old, but the appearance is not the science. Explain error, correction, and control. It passed. Why? It's built in from day one. From day one, you had the first tree, the first amoeba, the first man, the first rabbit, the first chicken when they came about. Now they're layered because one came before the other. The great architect, creator, intelligent designer built this on a plan, on his plan. He doesn't tell us everything, but he does tell us some things to come that's going to be coming next. And one day we'll get in that. Right now, I want to stick to science, make this as neutral, make this as naturalistic as possible. But we had to get into that. All right. For final forensic conclusion. This is my take. You can take it or leave it. Abiogenesis fails at the machine boot stage. All right. Before you can get off the ground, you know you got to, before you can have the car, you got to have an engine, got to have the transmission, got to have the muffler system. You got to have the transmission that turns the wheels. You got to have the wheel system. You got to have the gears. Then you got to have the coolant if you want to go anywhere fast for length of time. Propulsion is it going to be feet? If it's going to be combustion engine, you got to get off the ground. With abiogenesis and evolution, you never get off the ground. But because they have the status, the money, the power, just like in days of old when they built the Tower of Babel, if you wasn't up there dealing with Nimrod and the big boys, you wasn't nobody. So we're nobody, but we challenge anybody because just like the child that had the common sense to tell the emperor, sir, you have no clothes. They have no clothes. All right. Macroevolution fails at the system integration level. It fails at the boot stage. It can't even get off the ground. Then integrate. So you got the cup, you got which is a container. Then you put a lid on it to keep the temperature or keep the fluid in the container, and you got a straw to extract it when you need it. That's a system. That's a simple system, but it took a mind. Nature did not manufacture, create, and design this. It was a mind. The same people that say that the mindless system created all this will take what is the Miller, Urey, they would take chemical industrial grade precursors that eliminates a lot of the problems that never was as pure in the earth. It's too much contaminant. It's nature. Water destroys, light destroys, heat destroys, it builds byproducts. All this is going on. But you are to believe that the magical mystery happened unguided, unmindful, in the dark, struck by some magical lightning, or heated by the vents, or pansperma, which is only kicking the can down the road. Where did they come from? And then we want to stick to scientific method that fails at the scientific method, but because you can't test the panspermia, you cannot test the multi-universe hypothesis. It is not susceptible to scientific model and methods. So that is your belief. You want to keep it a naturalistic belief system so you don't have to address your moral dilemma. What is right? What is wrong? And how do we know it? All right, the information layer has no naturalistic source. Where does the information come from? Where in nature is information created outside of a mind, a brain? All right. However, on the other side, intelligent agency remains the only known cause of coded, hierarchical, self-regulating machines. We build iPhones, we build computers, we build laptop, desktops, cameras, speakers. We build these things because we have a mind and we imitate the one who created us, whether you like that or not. We're imitators. But they, on the other hand, are going off of their belief because they cannot reconcile the fact that they need a savior, that they are in a sinful world. Why all this sin in the world? Why? Because rules have been broken and God allows us to have free will to live our lives as we want. Now, they say, well, if he's a loving God, why he allowed this, that, and the other? Because of your free will. And I'm in this and I'm going to bring up some videos on this in a minute. All right, so this is not philosophy. This is system failure analysis, SFA, system failure analysis. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to keep going for a minute. I'm trying to reach an hour for a rumble. And for those that are still there, let's take a look at, I'm going to drop this down. We're going to take a look at some videos. If I can get this going here. All right, where we got it. Share the screen again. Share the screen. All right, let's see, can we get this going?
Have you seen any shift in the community of scientists? These guys aren't going around saying anymore that we're going to have life in the lab in 3 years. To his credit, Professor Cronin has said, yeah, when I said it's 2 years away, hopefully within the next 2 years, that was wrong. And now he's coming around and he has even said, the scam is, if we just make this RNA, let's now make this other molecule, another molecule. And how many molecules are going to be enough? So as you keep making all these, where's it going? Nobody can make a cell because there's some contingent information embodied outside the genome in the cell. And that is just incredible. The inherent information has come from outside the cell. Whoa. But he's seeing the same thing that we're seeing. So I think that, yes, people are coming around and they needed to be called.
And these are scientists currently who believe abiogenesis. To say that all the information was not found in the cell, some information came outside the cell. Whoa.
Called out, and
I have not seen these yet.
Continue to call them out because I have nothing else to do. Have you seen any shift?
All right, so that's all for Facebook, and that's Charles Tour, great scientist. I don't care what. All right, so this is Jesus something. This went by fast. I didn't get to see it.
People on the internet say they have debunked you. How?
Oh, this is Jesus and Science Foundation. It says people on the internet say they have debunked you. How do I know what's true?
Do I know what's true? You'd have to be more specific. They've
It's Charles Tour again.
debunked what?
Yeah.
They've debunked that you can hook amino acids together. The two amino acids that one has a side chain carboxylic acid, one has a side chain amine, and they've put that together. That's never been debunked. Has that person gone to a blackboard and shown you the way that that could happen? If not, then that's not been solved. Has a person gone to a blackboard and shown you how two glucose molecules could couple together with a discrete coupling, or only that coupling that's needed? Nobody's ever debunked that. Has anybody ever shown the polymerization of oligonucleotides without getting the 2,5 linkage and without getting the branching? Has anybody ever done that? If not, I've not been debunked. Has anybody ever been able to come up with where did the code come from? Where did the code come from? Has anybody ever done that? If they won't go to the blackboard and show us that, it's not been debunked. Has anybody ever said that they could take the discrete pieces from a cell and put a cell together? Has everybody ever said that? Has anybody ever done that? If not, I've not been debunked. So when you get down to the exact things that I've said, I don't think I've been debunked. So that's how you know. Isn't it true that the origin of life field has made significant breakthroughs, such as in the RNA world hypothesis?
Okay, so me as an amateur, I've been going at this, but Charles Tour as a professional. um, that's why we're gonna stay here a little bit, and I interject every now and then. And might go. This is a 30-minute video. I might not show all of it, jump around, but throughout the day, today and maybe tomorrow, sometime I'll go back to it because to me, I just hit a gold mine. I didn't even know this was here.
In my opinion, the RNA world hypothesis is a hypothesis on life support. RNA
He is a synthetic organic chemist.
Is terribly unstable. And RNA, you want to make RNA that's going to code for peptides, and you want to make the ribozymes. The ribozymes, they can act as enzymes, but they're not as good enzymes as proteins. And they're highly unstable. They are unstable in water. You have to have the prescribed code. How you get all the pieces and how you take all
That's just what we've been talking about.
the different pieces to hook up to be in a prescribed order to do anything. And as Steve Benner, an RNA expert, will point out, that if you just make random polymers of nucleotides to make RNA, that you will have far more, like thousands of times or hundreds of thousands of times more RNA molecules that degrade other RNA rather than synthesize RNA, so they don't copy themselves.
Right. That's what I was trying to point out in my amateurish way, is that what you start building, the building blocks that they actually build in that puddle, that soup, that prehistoric soup would cancel itself out. That's what I was trying to say.
You have much more of them degrading RNA. And RNA is just terribly unstable. So let's say one RNA molecule, even though the chances are way more difficult than 1 in 10 to the 50th. 1 in 10 to the 40th means that you wouldn't have enough time in our universe to do.
That's the other beautiful part that he's bringing out. And I do have articles on Substack, and I have uploaded videos to Substack and Rumble and different others, YouTube, on the timetable. You don't have enough time, even with your billions of years. It's a failure from the starting block. I'll put it that way.
This. So it's a very small probability that you'd get one of the right sequence to do anything useful. And even the ones that quote unquote duplicate themselves, look at the work that's been done on this. So there's so much priming, so much that's gone. And I've interviewed.
That's another thing I try to bring out in the Miller Urey lab, that the atheists, the YouTube and the TikTok atheists love to go to, is the fact that, oh, they have already done it. It's a proven fact. Evolution is a fact. Biogenesis is a fact. Of course, when you're dealing with these people, with you're trying to help and illuminate them with some information. But however, they are resistance or they cover up the information for others. You're trying to get the word out to someone who's reasonable that challenged me on it, but they're the screamers because that they get some kind of dopamine rush or whatever. But we are here to proclaim the truth, whether you like it or not, and we're going to keep doing that, even with the ridicule and the feedback. But again, I'm glad I stumbled onto this today, and this I put out several different articles today and several different videos on atheism and its systematic failure, but I tied together with the abiogenesis because that reinforces their unbelief.
Rob Statler on my YouTube channel, and you'll hear about this where we went through one of these experiments by Gerald Joyce of all that he had to do to get duplication. And usually you never get replication more than about 10% of the RNA. And it's a very painstaking process. It's nothing that would happen on an early Earth. And you're not dealing with one molecule. You're taking billions upon billions of molecules of that same RNA to try to do something.
Yes.
When you're dealing with one molecule, you only have, at the most, under the best conditions, hours before that thing would degrade. And so you had to have polymerized this in the absence of any other molecules. You couldn't have amino acids around.
Wow.
Because they would stop the polymerization. But you do have to have an amino acid hooked onto one of the ends. So that's a mystery on how that happens.
Right. Again, he's bringing out the impossibility of what they are stating. And those with the knowledge, unlike him and others in the intelligent design field and creationism, different ones, sometimes they fight one another. What those with the knowledge, they dare not say it because, again, credentialing, status, money, power, prestige, they're not giving it up, and they don't want to believe in God.
And so you get these RNAs, and then it has to be totally pure in order to get this condensation polymerization. Now, all of a sudden, you want it to be exposed to a bunch of amino acids. This thing's going to cleave. It's in water. It is going to leave. It's not going to last long. You have hours, which is the twinkling of an eye when you're talking about prebiotic chemistry.
Billions.
So the RNA problem is a huge problem, and it's very difficult to work with. So the RNA hypothesis, I would encourage you to read this new book that's out, X-Ray of Life. I mean, he just stacks up. He goes through 100
X-Ray of Life. That's my next book.
Pages or 200 pages just on the RNA world hypothesis problem. So that's not a very good hypothesis anymore. According to the paper Creation of a Bacterial Cell Controlled by a Chemically Synthesized Genome, haven't scientists built a cell capable of replication? No way, nowhere close. You can take any.
I'm gonna stop on this one. I'm gonna move to another video, but I will go over this video in depth. I love it. Great guy, great scientist. It just is. It's just too long. And make sure I am still. Wait, make sure I am still. Where we at? Layout. Where we at? I need my layout. Yeah, we on it.
Is abiogenesis proven fact? Have you ever wondered how life could emerge from non-living matter? This fascinating question leads us to the concept of abiogenesis. So, is abiogenesis a proven fact? The short answer is no, but let's break it down. Abiogenesis is the idea that life can arise from simple organic compounds through natural processes. Researchers are actively studying this hypothesis, but it remains unproven. From a physics perspective, abiogenesis is influenced by fundamental laws of chemistry and physics. These include thermodynamics, kinetics, and molecular behavior under various conditions. For example, the formation of complex molecules often requires energy sources. This energy can come from lightning, ultraviolet radiation, or chemical reactions at hydrothermal vents.
Now, again, this is my first time viewing this, so I'm doing a reaction on this. And see, I'll put it as my background for a minute. So this is going over what I attempted to say earlier. And I have several other videos. I don't know how long I'll make these videos. And then I will break them down into shorts anyway. So some of you will get it and say, oh, he said this, and you won't have the same picture because we are going over an hour right now. I needed to do that for Rumble. But let's continue. Come on.
These energy sources may have played a vital role in creating simple organic molecules from inorganic substances. One of the most famous experiments related to abiogenesis is the Miller-Urey experiment. This experiment showed that amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, could be synthesized from simple gases and water. The conditions in this experiment simulated those of early Earth.
According to them, but not really. Let's just go.
However, recent studies suggest that the early atmosphere might have been different, which could affect the results of these experiments. Another interesting aspect of abiogenesis involves chemiosmotic gradients. Some scientists believe that naturally occurring proton gradients at hydrothermal vents provided the necessary energy for synthesizing complex molecules. This process is similar to how living cells generate energy by moving protons across membranes. Mineral surfaces found in hydrothermal vents also play a role. These surfaces have catalytic properties that can help from simple organic molecules, such as methanol and formic acid, from carbon dioxide and hydrogen. This shows how minerals could contribute to the emergence of life. Abiogenesis is often seen as a continuous process rather than a single event. This means that the emergence of life could be a series of chemical reactions.
On this, again, assumption could have maybe this science in a theory, that's fine, but science, this is the foundation of your process. It's not working.
Leading to increasingly complex systems. Understanding abiogenesis is not just about our own planet. It also has implications for astrobiology, the study of life beyond Earth. By understanding how life might arise under
So this video is pro evolution, pro abiogenesis. Give you background.
Similar conditions on other planets or moons, we can expand our search for extraterrestrial life. In summary, while abiogenesis is a compelling hypothesis, it is not yet a proven fact.
Again, I'm glad that they admitted that, but as you can see, the undertone is that they believe it.
Researchers continue to investigate how life can emerge through natural processes governed by
how they believe, how they hope for
physical laws. The study of abiogenesis highlights the connection between physics and biology in understanding the origins of life.
I disagree with that. It's an attempt to use abiogenesis to understand. It's not giving you an understanding. All right, so we're done with that one. Let's move on to, we'll drop this one. I don't know about this one. I'm gonna look, I pull up a couple.
Said my iPhone wasn't made by Apple. This machine was
probability of evolution and natural selection creating everything that we have today. I said my iPhone wasn't made by Apple. This machine was found in the garden behind my home. The sand melted into proper microchips that fell on a circuit board where the copper fell in the exact right places. Somehow an earthquake shook all of this into an aluminum box that was milled through years of sand and wind. And then other bits of sand melted, made glass, and broke exactly to fill the gap. And the operating system was written on a computer that happened the same way in my neighbor's car. And if you want to believe that, go ahead. There is, by the way, a mathematical possibility that once out of every 16 trillion zillion gazillion attempts that this might happen. Would you bet on that, or would you bet on the 99.999999999 possibility that there was a form of intelligent design?
All right, so let's see, kill that one. This one didn't help. This one.
Shut up, dog.
All right, that was our introduction. The dog barked, and that means it's time to kick ass and take names. Or is it kick ass, chew bubblegum? We're all out of bubblegum, something like that. Welcome back to Myth Vision Podcast. I'm your...
We're going to skip that one. They're too loud, and I have no idea what they're talking. All right, Stephen Meyer. Evolution, let's see. Bacteria to Beethoven. I like that little phrase. Okay, but they're not talking. They're not saying anything. If I'm missing, oh.
Roughly how it went.
All right, here we go.
Evolution. You learned about it in high school. It goes like this. Life started out with very simple forms, and then gradually, over hundreds of millions of years, morphed into all the forms we see today. Bacteria to Beethoven. Not a straight line, of course, but that's roughly how it went. This was the theory proposed by Charles Darwin in 1859, and with some modification, it's been embraced as unassailable by the scientific community over the last century. As evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins says, if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is either ignorant, stupid, or insane. But is that right?
No.
Are there no scientific reasons to doubt the evolutionary account of life's origins? In November 2016, I attended a conference in London convened by some of the world's leading evolutionary biologists. The purpose? To address growing doubts about the modern version of Darwin's theory. Let's look at just two scientific reasons to doubt this theory. First, the Cambrian explosion. A weird and wonderful thing happened 530 million years ago. A whole bunch of major groups of animals, what scientists call the phyla, appeared abruptly within a geologically short window of time, about 10 million years. These novel animal forms, exhibiting prototypes of most animal body designs we see today, emerged in the fossil record without evidence of earlier ancestors. Did you catch that? A huge number of diverse animals appeared with no discernible antecedents. So where did they come from? This question really bothered Darwin, and he acknowledged that he could give it no satisfactory answer. Nor can scientists today. The renowned biologist Eugene Koonin of the National Center for Biotechnology Information describes the abrupt appearance of the Cambrian animals and other organisms such as dinosaurs, birds, flowering plants, and mammals as a pattern of biological big bangs. So what caused all these new forms of life to arise? That question leads to a second big doubt, the DNA enigma. In the 1950s, James Watson and Francis Crick made a startling discovery. The DNA molecule stores information as a 4-character digital code. Strings of precisely sequenced chemicals inside the DNA helix store the instructions, the information for building the crucial proteins that cells need to survive.
Now, again, Stephen Meyer, most of you may know. I need to break this up so that Perga, you or anyone else on YouTube may not, jump on me for using the full video without any commentary. But again, saying it very well instead of molecules to man, bacteria to Beethoven. A nice way of saying it.
Unless the chemical letters in the DNA text are sequenced properly, a protein molecule will not form. No proteins, no cells. No cells, no living organisms. Bill Gates has said DNA is like a software program. Let's think about that for a second. For computers to run faster, and perform more functions, they require new code. Well, the same is true for life.
That's why the code has to come simultaneously with the creation, with the development, with the evolving of the creature. It cannot be loaded afterward. You cannot journey around. It's too complex.
To build new forms of life, the evolutionary process would need to produce new genetic information, new code. But this raises questions about the creative power of natural selection and mutation. Natural selection is a simple sorting process. Species keep favorable mutations that allow them to survive, but eliminate bad mutations that cause their members to die out. No one doubts that natural selection is a real process and that it produces minor variations. But many biologists now doubt that it produces major innovations in biological form. To see why, think again about software. What happens if you introduce a few random changes into computer code? You'll likely mess it up, right? Though it might still work if you don't make too many changes. But if you make enough random changes, your program will stop functioning altogether.
Yes.
You certainly can't keep doing this and expect some cool new program to pop out. There's a mathematical reason for this. In all codes and languages, there are vastly more ways of arranging characters that will generate gibberish than there are arrangements that will generate meaningful sequences.
Nice.
And this applies to DNA. Remember, natural selection only selects sequences that random mutations generate.
Now, I want to, I'm doing a little experiment on that also. Okay. I'm challenging how they say it. And I'm not challenging Stephen Meyer, but I'm saying, okay, you have a moth sitting on a tree in UK, England, Britain, how you want to say it, and Scotland or whatever, Wales, and soot comes out, and the tree was white, and the birds ate the white moths. Then the tree gets soot on it, and then they eat the black moths, or vice versa. You know, the opposite. The white moths now stand out because the tree has soot on it and dirt from the chimneys that the birds eliminates them. So is that natural selection internal or external? It's external. So that's the point I want to make. A lot of what they consider to be natural selection, I believe, is selection by nature, or natural predator versus prey, however you want to say it. But
yet experiment.
It's not internal, it was external. The white moths died off or were killed off quicker than the darker moths because they were not camouflaged. The moths didn't change their camouflage. They was already camouflaged by design.
Have established that DNA sequences capable of making stable proteins are extremely rare, and thus really hard to stumble on randomly. How rare? While working at Cambridge University, molecular biologist Douglas Ack showed that for every DNA sequence that generates a relatively short functional protein, there are 10 to the 77th power non-functional sequences. Now consider that there are only 10 to the 65th power atoms in our galaxy.
It is so 10 to 65th power. There are versus 10 to 7. It borders on impossible.
So finding a new DNA sequence capable of building a functional protein is like searching.
And that had to go from inorganic to organic, from molecule to man.
Blindfolded for a single marked atom among a trillion Milky Way galaxies. Talk about a needle in a haystack. As I show in my book Darwin's Doubt, even 4 billion years of life's history is not enough time to overcome a search problem this big. So 2 serious doubts about modern Darwinian theory. The Cambrian explosion, the sudden appearance of new animals, which evolutionary theory has failed to explain, and the DNA enigma, the implausibility of random mutations producing the information needed to build new forms of animal life. Scientists who know about these problems are not ignorant, stupid, or insane. They are just appropriately
Yes.
skeptical.
Yes.
I'm Stephen Meyer, Senior Fellow at the Discovery Institute for Prager University.
Awesome. All right. So that's going to be my last one.
Evolution.
I appreciate everyone stopping in, everyone on my Rumble that's been sending me notes, and everyone on YouTube and Substack that may drop in, or I see still like 2 people there. Thanks for dropping in. I see a JDZ and different ones. I appreciate it. I'm going to end this now as best as I can, and hope to hear from you. Please make comments, like, share. Let me know what you think. How did it go? What do I need to improve on? I'll listen to it all. Thank you and God bless. All right.